Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the East Montgomery County Improvement District monthly Board of Directors meetings. We will always begin with the prayer and the pledge, and I will ask Director Leonard Rogers if he will say the prayer, and Director Ibarra to say the pledges. If you'll all please rise.
Almighty, our gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight with humble hearts, asking you to forgive each and every one of our sins, Lord. We ask you to be with this meeting tonight, that we may be the kind of meeting tonight that will be to our community and our fellows there. We ask you, Lord, to be with each and every one in the audience, and ask that each and everyone gets back home safely tonight, and that we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Face your flag and join me, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
We'll discuss that later. Thank you. Okay, the first item on our agenda tonight is to consider comments from the members of the audience, and tonight we have Ken Franklin signed up to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Webb, and
Thank
thank you, Board. I do appreciate this opportunity to just speak with you for a moment. I promise you I won't bore you with a lengthy presentation of electronic media.
Ken, turn the microphone.
You want to really hear me? That's like my voice. We passed out a little information to you about our upcoming bond, and I think one of the most important factors that we really want to bring to our community's attention is the fact that those first 60 years of New Caney ISD, we grew to 6,000 students. And just within the last 16 years, we've seen 116% growth, almost 8,000 students in the last few years. And this bond is a bond about student growth and facility updates. And we look back on our past bond history. Our first, in this last session of bonds, was in 1999. And those buildings are beginning to start showing some age. And we would love to say that usually would come out of our maintenance and operation, but unfortunately, with our funding, where we are in the school districts right now, that has to be done through the major projects through the bond. So there are a lot of facilities that we're upgrading, and on the back of that sheet, you can get an idea of what those facilities are. One of the interesting points in this bond is we have really three phases, and phase one will be a replacement campus at Aiken Elementary. We built Tavola to replace Aiken, but guess what happened? We weren't sure what we were going to do with that campus because we weren't sure about the growth. And guess what? We can fill up another school there at the Aiken site already. And so that is the reason why we will tear Aiken down and rebuild it with a new school. It was to the point that we really couldn't put any more money in it. And we had thought about an alternative school there or something else, but we have the need for another elementary school. One of the major points, though, is people ask you questions. This will provide an additional 3,500 seats for the district in this bond. I like to measure things like that because we're growing about 1,000 students a year with projected growth to continue on up. And that really buys us about 3 more years. And after that, we'll be back in the public's eye with another bond. And then I'm guessing that every 2 to 3 years, you'll see us with another bond. So this $173 million bond, it'll purchase land as well as build new facilities. And one of the things in the bond that I want to bring to your attention, because this is one that you may have a question about. We considered 2 options for an auditorium. Oh, first, we really considered 3. The first one was, do you want a swim program in New Caney ISD? And we've had a swim program. We've got more and more kids participating in swimming as we grow. We see more and more kids. And our board felt very confident, yes, we want to have a swim program. Well, then we had to look at 2 options. Option number 1 was the one that we chose, and that was to redo the current swim area and make that into a fine arts edition. and then do a neutral site for an auditorium. Well, option 2 was build an addition to New Caney High School and revamp the pool and bring it up to date. Well, that was going to be $400,000 more than if we took an auditorium to another location. So it made sense for us to save the $400,000 and have an auditorium then that Porter High School doesn't have to go to New Caney High School to participate in the swim program. And also, as we build our 3rd high school, and then our 4th high school, and then our 5th high school, guess what we'll need? An auditorium. And so a centrally located auditorium at a neutral site, possibly at the stadium. We haven't determined that yet, but that made sense to us. And it made monetary sense too, that savings. In this bond, we'll also be purchasing land for that 3rd high school. That 3rd high school will be in the next bond after this one. And that 3rd high school will, people said, where's the 3rd high school going to be? Well, if I tell you that, I might have to kill you, because I'm sure you know how real estate and those folks do. We don't know where that is going to be, but probably in the southern southwest area, somewhere in the district. But I appreciate everything that you do for the district. It's going to be a challenge anytime you go before the public, and we're counting on great people like you to get the word out and encourage those folks to go to the poll. We also are looking at an additional, 2 additional schools. One new one, our early college campus. Our early college has grown, and so to expand New Caney High School the way we need to, we have to take up that spot where early college is. So that will be another piece of land and another building that we're building, actually building this. That's what I just wanted to share with you briefly. Our website has tons of information. You can go as deep as you like to as people have questions. That little snapshot I gave you answers a few of those questions. But again, my main reason for being here tonight was share all the information, but I don't have an opportunity to tell you folks thank you for what you do for our community and what you do for our school district. And I appreciate each and every one of you. It's not easy to make the decisions you guys make, and we do appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Oh.
Can I ask a question? What are the boundaries of Aiken going to be? Is it going to go back to its original boundaries, or is it going to change?
Well, it's going to change. We've already reset all of the boundaries. We've already reset those. They're going to be pretty close, but because of Tobola there, we'll take some of the load off New Caney Elementary with Tobola. And so it won't be exactly the same. It'll be a little smaller boundary this time around because we have Tobola there now. So those boundaries have already been drawn up, and we did that last fall where those new schools boundaries are going to be. So
do you know what subdivisions?
I can't, off the top of my head, I can't tell you. But our website, or Jim Grant, you can give Jim a call, and Jim can tell you exactly where that's going to go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you
Okay,
very
thank
much.
y'all.
Are we going to be occupied the beginning of the next school year?
Tobola will be opened in August. We're opening it in August. Be ready to go. We're on time.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Thank y'all.
I do have one thing I wanted to add. I remember when I was on the board in 2008, we were approaching 7,000 kids, and we were trying to figure out how in the world we were going to be able to handle 7,000 kids, and now it's 2015 and it's doubled pretty much. So that shows you the growth. It's not slowing down a bit, neither. It's coming.
Thank you for that remark.
We also know nothing's more permanent than temporary buildings, and if you don't take care of the permanent buildings you have and upgrading them and doing the maintenance stuff through bonds, that's not a good use of taxpayers' money to let those facilities go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on our agenda is to consider and act upon approval of the minutes of the Board of Directors meeting held on March 19th, 2015.
So moved.
Okay. All right, we have a motion by Director Ibarra and a second
A second.
by Director Pearson. Is there any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. The next item is to consider financial, bookkeeping, cash flow, and investment reports and the taking of any actions required in connection therewith, including authorizing the payment of invoices presented or shown in such reports. Good evening, Kate.
Good evening. You do not have a supplemental report tonight. We had no checks to bring. There'll be a check run later this week. So the bookkeeper report that you have in your packet, if you've had a chance to look at it, if you have any questions on that one, I'd be glad to answer them. If not, I have nothing further.
Okay, so we would need a motion to accept it. Okay, Director Pearson makes the motion.
Second it.
And Director Hessen will second it. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Again, unanimous, thank you. The next item will be to consider adoption of resolution designating public information officer of the district.
That's an item that you guys had indicated was very important in the district, and since that time we've hired Kelly Matlich to serve as our public information officer, and this is just an action that you guys need to take in regards to having her be the main point of contact when we do receive requests, so that will be directed toward her and then she can act appropriately for those requests.
Okay, so we would need a motion
Correct.
to accept Kelly as the public information officer.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. All right, thank you. We've got the motion by Director Carlisle and the second by Director Rogers. And is there any discussion on the matter? I would like to say you're doing an excellent job. Thank you for all you've done. You've really done a great job, and I know we all appreciate you. All right, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. And we are going to step out of order for just a moment and bring item number 10 up before we adjourn for executive session. And that's going to be to consider the status of preparation of demographic study by LDP on placement of splash pad park within the district and the taking of any actions required in connection therewith.
And this is just in regards to locating some splash pad sites across the district for some other amenities for kids in the area. For those of you, some of you were present at our workshop we had this afternoon, and this is just a follow-up report for those of you that maybe couldn't make it. At least you get to interact with Yale and Michael. And if you have any additional questions in regards to what they're doing and some of the information they presented to that group, she's here to visit with you and just kind of give you an update of what we discussed, and then also kind of where we're going down the road with that project.
Yeah, this is really more of an update on where we currently stand. We're only halfway through our work right now, but we were asked basically to review 5 different locations within East Montgomery County and figure out where the best locations would be for a or multiple potential splash pads. The first step we did was actually to look at the actual demographics in each of those areas. Those were Splendora, Roman Forest, Lake Houston Park, right across the street here as part of that new development, and then also somewhere along the border. Splash pads in general function more as an amenity to the community, and the majority of people that use them are those really specifically within 15 minutes drive time. We looked out to 30 minutes and then out to an hour, so we could actually gauge the difference and balance how those different markets would compare against each other. Clearly some of them are empty within 5 minutes. For example, Lake Houston State Park, there's nobody living there. And then others are much more populated when you start looking at places like Porter or right around here. We've completed this demographic study of each of those locations by drive time 0 to 5, 5 to 15, 15 to 30 minutes, and then up to an hour. We've looked at things such as age profile and income levels and such. And then we've also started doing a review of other splash pads, not just in the Houston area, but other parts of the country, to look at what they're doing, what best practices are, how they operate. We just arrived here Sunday night. We've spent some time looking at all the different sites, or not specific sites, but destinations. Driving around the neighborhoods, looking at what amenities are already there, looking at the level of housing, the level of services that are available, etc. And then today, we kind of summarized all of those initial findings and had a very good meeting with part of the committee this morning. And the key point of that was not just to bring everybody up to date, and I can give you guys a copy of the presentation as well, I forgot to do that earlier, but also was to really identify 5 key priorities that would help us rank the different potential locations against each other and help you guys determine the best sort of process in terms of what's number 1, what's number 2, If there's a 3, where is it? If there's a 4, where is it, etc. And those key priorities that everybody agreed upon were the following. One, that no matter what, it has to be free of charge. And that, it's community amenity, nobody pays. It doesn't matter if you live in the town or not. If it's located in Splendora, the Roman Forest, people don't have to pay more or anything else like that. It's free to everyone. 2 was that operating it is not something that you want to do yourselves. So depending on the location, it can either be taken on by the developer in terms of operating and maintenance, or possibly a third-party operator would come in and be paid to take care of that. But the liability is something that EMCID does not want. 3 was that the first location should be the one that really has a big impact, and big impact in 2 different senses. One, that it attracts a lot of people, so therefore it's most likely to be in a more populated area, so bigger throughput, bigger facility, but also 2, that it benefits the adjacent businesses, because that therefore will increase sales and therefore increase potential revenues via sales tax. So there's a benefit in 2 different ways. The third point was that the second location, and the fourth point, was that the second location, and possibly a third, should be big in terms of benefit, i.e. it should fill a need. So it should actually be targeting more a location where there are no amenities whatsoever, where this is actually, although maybe not as populated, a location where people will really benefit from it being located there. And then the last very important point was that EMCID has to get the credit for it. And that you guys really want to make sure that people know you're doing this for the community and that it's a service to the community. That will play when we start measuring up against the different locations. For example, we discussed it a little bit this morning. If it were to go in Lake Houston State Park, it's not necessarily going to be recognized, and even with the plaque there, it's not going to be recognized necessarily as an EMCID project. We'll probably see it more as a park project. And also, more importantly, the people that go use the park are not from this area, and you want your local residents to be benefiting from it, not necessarily people from the greater Houston area that are going up there to spend, a week vacation during the summertime or whatever the case may be. So those are the key 5 priorities that we all agreed upon. Now, our job is basically we're going to continue to, the next couple of days, visit existing splash pads in the area here in Houston, see different levels of quality, different, how they're working, etc. Then we're going to go back and finish our analysis, which will generally basically be looking at what is the throughput potential, how many people will visit it, what kind of capacity do you need, and then also more importantly, how do the different sites rank up against each other, given the priorities that I just outlined. And then we'll finish our report and get back to you. That's where we stand. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Jill. Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda will be to recess to executive session to discuss real property matters pursuant to Section 551.072 Texas Government Code, pending or contemplated litigation pursuant to Section 551.071 Texas Government Code, matters in which the duty of the attorney to the district under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflict with Chapter 551 Texas Government Code pursuant to Section 551.071 Texas Government Code and the economic development negotiations pursuant to Section 551.087 Texas Government Code. And we are in recess at 6:50. Thank you all for being here. We will be back. And we are back. It's 8:10. So the next item on our agenda is to consider status of the development of the district's 12.85 acre site, including the construction of improvements and the leasing of space in the district's office building and the taking of any actions required in connection therewith, including status of condemnation by TxDOT relative to Grant Parkway.
And no updates or anything to report on that.
Okay. The next item is to consider request for waiver or reduction of charge for providing copies of public information and the taking of any actions required in connection therewith.
And on that item, you guys have received a request for a waiver of the charges for an open records request. And Kelly, you want to kind of give us an update of where we are and what's going on there?
Well, the whole process has happened since March 24th when the original request came in. There needed to be a couple of items that were clarified. And then when we went to go do the estimate as far as how many documents were responsive to that request, it was well over the $40 mark. And at $40 is when you have to give an estimate of the charges. That estimate was sent out. And along with that estimate, you have to do three things. Accept the charges, which I think at the time the estimate was about $123. You can modify your request to bring those charges down, or say, I'm going to come into the office and view them, or you can complain to the Attorney General that you're being overcharged. I did receive notice that she wanted to accept the charges. However, she had requested the waiver. And so finally, because she did say that she accepted the charges, that means that I proceed with making the copies and going to get documents, redacting them, doing all of that. So all of those documents have been redacted, what needs to be done, and made copies, which there are about 718, which comes out to be about $143.30. So she did ask when those documents would be ready, and I said that I was out yesterday, but they could be ready by tomorrow, and then I knew that this was happening tonight. So the documents, they are ready, and they are ready to be sent with a notice that requires her to pay $143.30, obviously depending on what happens tonight. But that's where we are on that. So the request, it's been completed, it hasn't been turned over.
How much, can I be asked this? How much time have you spent for preparing those documents?
I have logged over 9 hours. I know.
How many?
9.
9 hours?
I spent last week every day basically working on that, which obviously doesn't add up to 9 hours, so it's a lot more. You can only log for certain things of when you're fulfilling that request, you know, whether you're finding the copies or whether you're actually copying the copies or whether you're redacting the copies. You can't, you know, for time spent on the phone with the attorney, which is what I had to do because of some documents within the request that I needed to discuss things with the attorney. So I spent time, you know, discussing with the attorney, discussing with Frank, and so basically I spent all week last week doing this request and pretty much nothing else. But as far as what I'm allowed to log was about 9 hours. What I put on the request is about half of that, because when you start saying that, oh, you spent 9 hours to copy records, that looks, it just doesn't look right. But that is how much time it took to compile and redact and make copies. So I have spent a week.
So really truthfully, the $140 that you can actually charge for is about 5 times more than that when it actually came out to the expense of the community or the taxpayers having to pay for you to prepare that deal. And your salary, in other words, your salary, that you could have been doing something else besides preparing that little document. Is that right?
Yes.
And the attorney's cost, how does that?
I don't know what the attorney fees are. But
See, here we go.
So,
and I mean, you know, because I am doing these doesn't mean that you totally knock out any attorney's fees. There are always going to be times when there may be something, you know, there was a couple of items within the documents that I found going through them that, you know, I had questions as to whether they should be accepted for disclosure. You know, they may not be public. We may want to withhold them because of certain content within them. So you have to discuss that with an attorney. I can't just release it, because then if we release it and we release the wrong thing, we'd be in big trouble. So there are times when I will have to consult with an attorney. There are other times that I won't.
Kelly, let me ask you something. You fulfilled all the public information requests when you were at the school district. And you of course know how it read with them. Does ours read any differently? I mean, is it basically the same? Did we adopt the same policy as New Caney ISD?
It's exactly the same. I mean, it's pretty much the same across the state with any government organization. It's the same
language,
the same fee schedule, the same you know, process. It's the same. it's the law. I mean, you're following the law.
Okay, thank you.
And so is this request being made by an individual or is this request being made by a nonprofit?
Which request?
The one that you spent all week on this?
An individual.
Specific.
Kelly, are you the only one that worked on that stuff, or did you have somebody else help?
No, it's me. Now,
Does the individual have to tell you what they want with the information, or they just want it?
yeah, and we, by law, cannot ask what they want the information for.
The way the statute reads is that it can be waived if it's for, like a nonprofit, or if it's in the interest of the entire community. And my problem is if we set a precedent now, this is the first request, and we just adopted this back in November.
Yeah,
If we waive a fee now, we will be waiving all the fees. At least it could be requested.
you're right.
And if that's the case, it's, then we shouldn't have adopted it, but we did for a reason.
Well, I think we have to balance transparency with being good stewards of resources.
I think that goes a little bit far.
I agree.
Well, and two, they're available in the office at no cost.
Right.
At no cost, unless we have to redact information, which in this particular request, almost every page had to be redacted because you're talking about some reimbursements, which there were some within those reimbursements and expense reports, there were people who reimbursed us. Say somebody went and purchased their own plane tickets to one of our trade shows and they paid us by check. Well, we're redacting that account, their account number. You don't want your checking account information out there. And then the other thing were credit card statements. So every single page has our credit card number or somebody's last 4 digits. So if we have to redact something, you do have to charge for that, even if it is in the office, because we can't let somebody look at our original files that haven't been redacted.
Right, I understand that. Does anybody else have any discussion on it?
Well, I personally know what you're going through because I filled those public information requests too. And just to do 100 pages, it takes me all day plus my secretary. So that's a lot of labor. Redacting, I have to read every page and make sure that I don't make a mistake and release the wrong information. So I understand.
This one was 718 pages.
I understand that.
Plus, there's been cases where people haven't picked up, what they've asked for, and then you're doing the reverse. You're costing taxpayers money, even more money.
I have run into that in previous situations too, where I walked in, in a new position, and that there was a box there waiting for a TV station, and it was waiting there for 4 years. And, it took somebody a tremendous amount of time and to do all that stuff, but nobody ever came to pick it up. So that is one way of the cost estimate and sending out and charging, is to make sure that you really do want what you say you want, and you're not tying up somebody's time. Because I know that there are cases out there, there's a school district in the Austin area particularly, and there are certain people that they do that it's on purpose. And they've stated that they plan to. So you don't ever want to come in that situation. We want to be transparent. We want to give you whatever you want out there, but we want to make sure that you really do want it. And that's the whole.
And our policy was 40 pages or less. Wasn't that our policy? And 50 pages or less was no charge, right?
If the total request comes up with 50 pages or less, we don't charge. Now, if you have to redact something, it would be 10 cents a page.
Okay.
But
So there's that option, or just coming into the office, themselves. So
Yeah.
Right, that would be the.
So we're not taking away the ability to get the information. We're just trying to protect our other taxpayers and the tax dollars as well.
But still, 50 pages is a lot of work on her part.
Yes.
Kelly,
Some people don't have a life.
you talked about the boxes that you saw. Have you seen that since you were here? Have you seen at EMCID? Okay, thank you.
no, I wouldn't have done.
No, okay. Thank you.
No, I'm not.
We did have it at the
aware of
school
any-
district though.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
But, no, I'm not aware of it. And that's one of the reasons why you send out that estimate, is to say, look, this is what we think it might cost based on, okay, we know that there are on average this many pages in a credit card statement. So, if you want 9 months worth, then we're going to multiply that, and you want receipts. So there's probably at least this many pages. So, and it's just an estimate. And, you try, and I usually do the estimate and then I reduce it. I'll take off 20%, because I certainly don't want to give the impression that we're trying to push you away and make it cost prohibitive to get this information. We don't want to tell anybody that. So that's why I knock 20% off of what my estimate is. And then if the actual cost is 20% or more, then I have to notify the person, hey, it's going to be this, are you still okay with that? So there are all kinds of processes in place.
So you're still giving them a discount anyway right off the top?
Well, just an estimate, yes.
Yeah,
Or,
gotcha.
are you willing to do this? We think it's going to be about this. In this instance, it was more. It was about 15% more than my estimate, which is still under what my original estimate before the 20 off. So.
Are we paid before you do that, or you're paid after you get it done?
We can require a deposit because we have fewer than, I think it's 15 people in the office. We could require a deposit if it's going to cost $50 or more. Or you could set it at $100 if we wanted to. If we thought it was going to be $100, we could require you to pay a deposit of 50% before we do any work. In this instance, we didn't require the deposit, but it's with the understanding, and this is one of the reasons we talked to the lawyers for, was to make sure that we're not going to do all this work and then, we're just going to hand it over and never receive anything. So it was told to me that she accepted the charges, regardless of what happened tonight. She accepted the charges, and then the information is ready, and so I have a statement ready to send to her, and that before it has some kind of wording in there that before these documents are produced to you, you will need to send us a $800 money order form.
So they are.
And then when we receive that,
Yes.
we will give you the documents. Now, we have already done the work. A deposit would have, prevented a little bit of that, but.
Madam Chair, it seems like we have a very fair current policy that is a wise decision for most people most of the time.
Was that a motion?
I think we call the questions. So I would opt to move on to item number 9.
Do we need to does this need to be
Well, the board, the body is the one that has to take the action, so I would recommend that you have,
No action?
or just a motion that there was no showing, to deny the request because there was no showing of public benefit and public because it wasn't public.
Do we have to act upon this one first?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
That way
yes.
it's in the record.
You make the
I'll
motion.
make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to deny the request made by Director Martin and a second by Director Rivera. And is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay. The next item is to consider report on activities within the industrial park and the taking of any actions required in connection therewith, including, let's read them all. Status of sale of dirt out of future detention pond, including status of contract with TDG for excavation and delivery of dirt. Status of contract with Quadvest Construction for construction of roads to serve Section 3. Approval of plans and specifications and authorized advertisement for bids relative to construction of roads to serve Section 4. Status of plat of Section 3 and Section 4. Status of contract with Quadvest Construction for construction of wastewater lift station. Status of contract with Quadvest for water distribution and wastewater collection facilities to serve Industrial Park Section 3. And that's it.
Well, next page has G through J.
I'm so sorry. That's his stuff.
And that's, I was gonna say that, I'll take A through.
Yeah, you'll take A through F. We're doing good.
Yeah. A is the dirt. I talked to Catalyst Trading today and to find out where they're at on purchasing dirt. And, you know, we've been working with them, working with our architect to design their site. We have talked with Rebel Contracting, who's a dirt contractor out there, and Rebel has been held up because we just got a contract back. It's been real wet out there, so they really haven't done anything. They're still going to get the dirt, what he's saying. It's just taking longer than they want and you want to get the money back. So it's still going. B is the Quadus contract for the roads. We, like I said, we got the contracts back last week from the contractor. Of course, there's problems with when they first submit them. We sent them to David when we got them. David's reviewed them and has got us the changes back that he found. We've got those changes made. We'll get them back to David tomorrow to make sure that we got everything he wanted. And actually, that's the road, the lift station, and the water distribution contract. All three of those go back. They're kind of dependent on Rebels starting out there because they'll be in each other's way if they don't. The ditch needs to go first because the dirt in the ditch is going to go the roads and go where the utility lines are going. So we talked to Rebel, talked to Quadvest. We're going to get them together, and then they're going to have, you know, come to a meeting what they're going to do together. The Section 4, of course, it's on hold because not much activity up there right now. And the plant, we've had a change in road alignment, and it's to save a lot of money on roads, and that hasn't been resolved yet. When you submit a plat, we submit it when they're in talk to them, like I've been telling them, everything's done. Except when you submit a plat that's approved by the county, it's a one-time submittal. So you don't want to submit it but once, you know, and you're just wasting your time. If you don't want to replat, it costs too much money. So we kind of put it on hold till we get this road problem. And that's the acquisition of a little piece of property. That's it. Questions?
Anybody have questions? Thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
Appreciate you. You need these individually all of those. Read all of them. G through H, G through J. Okay, so we'll skip on down to item J, approval of purchase and sale agreement for purchase of 0.828 acre site in the industrial park and authorize the taking of all actions necessary in connection therewith.
And as Joe just mentioned, we're going through the process of purchasing about 8/10 of an acre to allow for some road widening and allow some drainage improvements, which will save us several $100,000 in the road construction. So we'd like your all's approval to go ahead and get a purchase and sale agreement in place with those property owners and get that strip of land necessary that will save us some money on construction.
So, okay.
Second.
We have Director Pearson making the motion to approve the purchase and sale agreement and seconded by Director Hessen. Is there any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. Okay, we've already done number 10, so item 11, consider issuing a letter of support relative to development of Ridgecrest of Splendora and the taking of any action required therewith.
And on that item, I'd recommend we just wait. When we discussed this item previously, we also wanted to see a letter of support from the City of Splendora and from the school district. The City of Splendora has provided a resolution of support on the project. We've not received any positive information back from the school district yet on that. So once we have that, we'd be prepared to act on it, but we're still waiting on action from the Splendora ISD.
And we contacted Splendora ISD?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 12 is to consider status of incentive agreement with Saints and Sinners Brewing Company and the taking of any action required in connection therewith.
And with that development, Once again, they've started the process of kind of gutting out the building and anticipation of their equipment arriving in the next few months. And nothing to really report on there other than they're making good progress on getting the building cleaned out and moving forward with their project.
When do they plan to be operational?
Plan to be operational this fall, and the first product, that product would be a beer-based product, would be available in the fall time frame, October, November. So we need to put you on the notice list for when that product is available, and Martin, you're second in line.
Well, actually, the colleges, our big workforce center will be process technology. And you think of that in oil and gas, but it's anything going through distillation, catalyst, and other products. So it also includes microbrewery.
So let's see, we have beer and we have college students. I wonder how that's going to work out.
I predict a lot of majors.
I wonder why they chose that location.
Could be.
Maybe because it's so close to the college.
Frank, if you got our paper back.
No, not yet.
And the win-win, it was a church before, so now it's going to be a tax-based entity.
That's why it's not Saints and
Yes,
Sinners.
so it'll be pretty good.
Okay, the next item is to consider status of incentive agreement with Splendora 2090 Property LLC or its assignees and the taking of any action required in connection therewith.
And nothing to report on that one either. Once again, we're waiting to get some information back from the property owners on the project, and so no action on that.
Is that that service station?
That's the service station off of 2090, that's correct.
Okay. The next item is to consider status of incentive agreement regarding construction of Taco Cabana and the taking of any actions required in connection therewith.
And we're done with this agenda item. We now have an executed agreement we received back last week from Taco Cabana. So that agreement is now in place. And we'll talk, as we get to our announcements at the end of the meeting, I'll give you guys some dates to be there for the grand opening and ribbon cutting.
Okay, great.
So the dates that we have now are any good?
I'll give you an update, just to be sure you're squared away.
Okay. The next item, to consider status of incentive agreement regarding construction of Pollo Tropical and the taking of any actions required in connection therewith.
And once again, this is the same holding company. Again, they've executed their agreement with us, and we now have an executed agreement. And once again, they'll be opening up here shortly, and we'll make sure we get you guys straight on the opening and being present for some of those events.
And if you'll ask them to fix those two of the letters don't light up.
Two of the letters don't light up. Okay. Okay.
The next item is to consider approval of development agreement with Jeffco Development Corp. and sponsor agreement with TxDOT regarding construction of drainage and detention facilities for retail center and expansion of Loop 494.
And no action on this development right now. We're still waiting on them to come back and present a finalized package to us, and so nothing to consider right now.
Okay. The next item is to consider motion to reconsider previously acted upon motion to review professional services contracts once every 3 years as scheduled by Mr. McCready, and if passed, to reconsider and take action on said previously considered motion. Was that confusing enough?
So this was the item that you guys talked about in regards to reviewing contracts on some type of time frame or time schedule basis. And you guys had asked for this to come back to the board, and so it's back here for your all's consideration and discussion again.
I thought we carried that item up last time.
Well, some members didn't hear exactly what was going on or didn't understand exactly what was going on. So we wanted to bring it back.
You know, in terms of our legal counsel and engineering, I know the college has most of those, but many large institutions actually have them as full-time paid employees. And I can't think of any instance in any of the boards that I've been on for these kinds of professional services that this is done. I do know that every now and then, or periodically, audits are done where you compare some prices and you realize that you get a good deal. And I know this sounds kind of tacky, but as I've tried to think about it, I think of the couple that's happily married and then you find one is fishing on the internet on an online dating game. That's what it seems like to me when you know, when we have trust and long-term relationships and no reason to really be looking elsewhere.
The reason
My opinion.
The reason why I wanted to reconsider is because I wanted to make sure what's in my mind got out there. I'm not only talking about people, I'm talking about bigger, you know, big contracts that we have. Like, I mean, I'm not saying we want to replace an attorney or an engineer or anything like that. We'll also look at the books, the bookkeeper, the labor ready, all these professional services. In my mind, it's defined as professional services. Look at these, just bring it up. Bring it before the board, say, hey, you know, everybody's doing a good job. We don't need to look out somewhere else. Or maybe, hey, there is somebody out there that can offer something for half the price of the same service. I just wanted to bring it before the board every 3 years just to consider that. That doesn't mean we have to replace anybody, and I'm not even wanting to. So,
For clarification, is the motion to accept bids regularly or to renew the contracts?
in my opinion, just review the contracts.
Okay, just in case you want to stay in line with Robert's Rules of Order, when a motion's been acted on, basically somebody who voted in the prevailing side, which in this case would be the side that voted against it to stop passage of it, needs to make a motion to bring it back up. And then you vote on that, and then it's on the floor to discuss. And then you vote on whether you want to do the action if it gets back to the floor. That's procedurally, that's why it was written this way. And I'm not trying to make it complicated or technical. I just so you follow the rules.
So Robert's Rules of Order would be somebody that did vote against it in the past to make the motion.
Against the motion the last time would make a motion to reconsider.
That's
and
fair.
then you would vote on that. And if a majority said we want to bring the original motion back to reconsider, then you could have this discussion. And if a majority said, no, we don't want to reconsider our action, we're comfortable with it, and we just want it to go to bed, stay asleep, then that's the end.
So somebody that voted against it needs to make the motion.
Correct.
Okay. I voted for it, so.
Motion to reconsider.
Well,
So is there a motion on the floor to reconsider? Okay. If there's not a motion, then we will reconsider it. Okay. The next item is one I missed before we broke for executive session, and that's for announcements. Did you want to talk about what you did?
So what do we do with number 17?
Nothing.
It's going to stay the same.
Yeah.
Then nobody that voted against it made the motion. So it's dead, right?
It did.
That's it. Stays decided until, I think until the term of the board ends, which is probably next election cycle is when the term ends. You bring it back up again then in that form.
That's fair. I like to act in the rules.
Pardon?
That's fair. I like to act inside the rules. So.
Okay, did you want?
excuse me, I'm not quite understanding what is this like to review people's contracts, or what is this? What are we talking about there? Just basically as a board, it's to open up discussion to see what we're,
Yeah, can you read it to us? I brought it. All right. At the meeting on February 17th, there was a motion made by Scott, no, seconded by Scott. The motion was made by Stephen and seconded by Scott. And the motion, and this is just, I'm reading this out of your minutes, because I would never have remembered it all and written it down, is that a motion to review professional service contracts once every 3 years as scheduled by Mr. McCready. Okay, that was the motion that you made in February. By a vote of 4 in favor and 4 opposed, the motion failed. So,
I remember that.
Yeah.
so it went off the agenda. Okay. So Stephen asked that it be put back on the agenda at the last meeting. So, but because the action was a final action, the motion under Robert's Rules becomes whether to bring it back up to discuss it again. Okay, so somebody who voted in the negative, in other words, to kill the motion, make it not pass, has to make would have to make a motion now for reconsideration and that would have to pass for you to bring it back up to discuss it.
Even if it was 4-4?
Even, well, 4-4 was, the prevailing side was the side that stopped the
I
action.
see.
And so for the record, could you read how the vote went?
Yeah, it was Hessen, Carlisle, Martin, and Webb were in favor, and Pearson, Rogers, Ibarra, and Zepeda were
So one of those four in the last group would have to
make a motion,
make a motion to bring it up tonight.
and then it would have to pass. So 5 people would have to vote in favor of bringing it back up, and then it's back on the floor. We're back where we started when the motion was made, where we had discussion.
So right now it's dead.
At this moment, it is, unless somebody makes a motion to bring it up.
And it has to be the one of the ones that voted against it.
Yes.
And then that's just to bring it back up for discussion.
Yes.
And then we would
That
have
has
to
to pass
have
first.
another motion to pass it.
Not exactly.
Not exactly, okay.
If you pass the first motion, I'll tell you where you are.
Okay. Well,
If there's a
I
motion
can't bring
made
it
to
up.
bring it back up, and if that passes,
You'll get back to us.
I'll tell you where you are.
So do we have a motion?
So do we have a motion?
I think, I remember that meeting because a couple of us talked about it before, after, and the deal was that most of the conversation was going on over there, and they didn't have the microphones on, and I couldn't hear what they were talking about, and I didn't understand, that's why I didn't vote.
Okay, do you want to make the motion to reconsider the motion? Okay. Okay, so a motion to reconsider is made by Director Zepeda,
Can I second that? Okay, I'll second.
and it's seconded by Director Carlisle.
Now we can
And now
discuss.
is there discussion?
No discussion. Vote.
No discussion? Okay. All in favor of bringing the motion back to reconsider? Raise your hand.
Back to
1, 2,
reconsider.
3, 4, 5. Okay. So we have 5 in favor.
Now discussion.
No.
Is
There's
there
no discussion.
any Leonard proposed?
Yes.
Yes. And
And Pearson.
Pearson? Yeah. Okay. So now,
Now, the motion on
Council.
the floor is what I read. The motion is, the motion back on the floor is the motion that was made by Stephen and seconded by Scott, that the motion is to review professional service contracts once every 3 years as scheduled by Mr. McCready.
So now that's on the floor.
That's the motion that you're discussing and going to vote.
Okay, so we have to discuss it now.
It's open for discussion. We're back to the point at which you made a motion and Scott seconded it.
All right. So the reason why I wanted to reconsider is because I wanted to review these things, because if we can go 20 years with the same service or person, and never even know that there's a better option out there, or then they wouldn't have any, in my mind, wouldn't have much of an incentive to do a better job and find a better deal on their own or something. If they knew that they were being reviewed every 3 years, then they would be sure to do us a good job for one, and we would explore and figure out if there was a better option out there.
But haven't we done that? We've done that with auditors or with bookkeepers, those kinds of services.
Yeah, just to answer your question, yeah, we've gone out and had public input in regards to those that want to do our audit, and we typically end up with the same guys, because we're not a huge profit center from an auditing standpoint. Not many people want to do governmental auditing, governmental accounting. So from an auditing standpoint, we've done that in the past and looked at others sending us proposals to prepare our audit, and you guys have acted on those proposals.
And to me, it doesn't have to be anything more than a discussion between us. Are we pleased? You know, what's worked for the last 8, you never know in 2 years from now where we're at or what's happened, since. I think it's just being good stewards.
But there would be nothing to prevent us, if we weren't satisfied with the services, to bring that up for discussion and possible action. Yeah, the way that we've been conducting business thus far.
Well, my train of thought, if it was routine that we just it's routine that it gets placed on the agenda for review, then it would have us or future board members think, okay, well, let's look at it, and, okay, they're doing a good job, let's move on.
I mean, it's nothing out of the usual. I mean, not employees do it, companies do it all the time. I mean, they review their employees. I review my employees. I mean, you know, I just need to know where they're at, what they're doing, can they do a better job? If not, well, then they get spanking and they keep working.
My understanding is that we currently do that. Probably the two specialty, at least in my short time on the board, that we haven't have been our legal, our general, our counsel, and our engineering firm.
And we did renew, I believe we renewed the contract with Joe Costanza last year because it had not been renewed. And that was something that was certainly to your advantage to do that.
Auditor 6 years ago.
About 6 years ago, we had Hereford Lynch.
It may have been maybe 3 years ago, because we had some folks, we just didn't have to get a huge response of people that want to do our audit.
And one thing that the people at McCall Gibson told me do as our auditors, that they have a different partner that oversees the audit every year, and somebody different to do the legwork, all the workups. So they don't have so they have different eyes on it within their firm. So there's checks and balances there.
That's what I'm looking for, is checks and balances.
And
Myself.
we do the insurance the same way. We shop for insurance.
And if we review contracts, then that information would be brought forward. Because I didn't know that they did that, you know, that those checks and balances were in place, so that's good to know.
I didn't know it until Virginia told me about a year ago.
Yeah.
That, you know, she's like one of the supervisors. But Noel Barfoot, when Mike McCall retired, Noel Barfoot told me that, you know, the different partners they change, you know, they move from one client to the other. So there's fresh eyes.
For me, it's different, and I've seen where you go out for bookkeeping and for auditing, and that's a regular, you do have some comparison. Those don't seem to be quite as specialized as when you get into the legal and engineering. And I guess that's where I don't know how you'd compare apples to apples in fairness. And I think that was some of my concern.
We also have to have bookkeepers that are specialized in government accounting. Not all bookkeepers can do it. Not all accounting firms.
I'm just asking for something a little routine to ensure that the checks and balances are there. That's in a nutshell, that's what I'm asking. Just something routine. I'm not asking that we open everything up for bids. I'm just saying, hey, let's review it. Little checks and balances. That's routine. That's all I'm asking.
So then the motion really would be on reviewing professional services.
Right. Yeah, I'm not asking to accept bids or anything like that. Maybe consider if somebody else has been talking about it or something, but not put out that we're looking for a replacement by no means. I'm happy with what we have. Right.
To review the contracts of the professional services.
Right.
So that's the motion that you want to make to review?
To review, yeah, I'm
contracts.
making a motion to review the contract. I think that's how it was worded before, wasn't it?
Is the motion that you're making, is it going to be for the entire board to review the contract or just Frank to review the contract? Because it says in your Frank.
As scheduled.
I think Frank should review it and then put it in front of the board.
Frank scheduled.
Right.
Where the motion was made where the motion was made was for the board to review professional contracts as scheduled by Frank.
Right.
So Frank will set up a schedule.
Every 3 years.
Every 3 years.
Didn't it have 3 years?
So Frank will set up the deal, this program, they'll bring the contractor in, the board will hash him over the coals and review him and then vote on it.
Well, I think it was just reviewing. Well, just review.
Vote.
We would only need to vote on something if we're going to make a change, right?
Yeah.
If we're not happy with something, we would make a change.
Yeah, it's just.
If there's no change, then we don't need to make no votes.
Right. So the motion is motion to review the contracts every 3 years.
Right.
That's correct. Okay, so you're making the motion.
The motion's
The
passed.
motion's there, they're not going forward.
I'm sorry, we are in discussion. Okay. Is there any more discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the motion to review the contracts every 3 years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And the motion passes. Okay, now the next agenda item is for the announcements. Did you want to make an announcement about your?
Well, yeah, I went on my first trade show where we had a booth and everything, and it was a positive experience for me. We did go there to work. We went, set up, and went back to the hotel, had dinner, went back, tried to sell the county. We're selling our area. Frank did a really good job, so I want to give him a good pat on the back. He did a good job, and from my understanding, we've already received some contacts back from that. I know we made at least 6 positive contacts, and he's already heard back from 3 or 4 of them. So I think we did a good job, and I think that particular trade show was worth the time and money we spent on it.
And then Dale and I went on the Montgomery County Day to Austin, and we met with legislators, and they had legislation. They were in session. We got to watch them in session, and we got to meet them. And I sat down at 2 of the desks. I don't know if I was supposed to, but sat down and took pictures, and we really had it. It was a very, very good thing that the chamber put on. And for those of you who don't know, Thursday night at 6:30 is the East Montgomery County Republican Women's Fundraiser, and it will be at the Yellow Rose. No, I'm sorry, it's at Texan Drive Stadium. I'm so sorry. It's at Texan Drive Stadium. It's the end of tax season, I'm sorry. Yeah, Texan Drive Stadium. And most of you have bought tickets. If anybody wants tickets, I'm selling. Are there any other announcements?
Yes, Rowdy Hayden's fundraiser is Thursday,
The
23rd.
Is it 23rd?
Prom night is the 24th. And the 25th is ideal time for me. I'm out of here. And I just want to echo about what Stephen said on that trade show. I mean, I've only been to the one in Anaheim, and it actually worked, and it was, I got a phone call from one of the guys that I took out to dinner that evening, and he has already sent me some information, and I'm going to return his call tomorrow.
And did you want to update us, Frank, on the openings,
Yeah, let me just give you, I think one change. Once again, tomorrow, remember Valley Ranch Town Center tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. And I'll just be over there behind the stadium on the road that swings around behind the stadium. On that corner is where that will be conducted.
But the actual turning of shovels is 10 o'clock.
Yeah. But it starts at 10. Be there at 10. The other elected officials are supposed to be there at 10, so you all should be there at 10 also. So the request is to be there at 10. And then we'll do the ceremony thing at 10:30. So please be there at 10 so we're represented and present for duty. The other thing, Taco Cabana has moved their ribbon cutting to 10 o'clock on the 24th.
They haven't finalized that. That's a
So,
that was a 10.
why did you hand this to me if it's not the right time?
What did you say? Not Taco, just go to Pollo Tropical, the 24th.
Pollo Tropical is 9 o'clock is the opening, and 10 o'clock is the ribbon cutting.
Okay.
So if you're there at 9 o'clock, it will be for the grand opening, and at 10 o'clock, it will be the ribbon cutting.
I thought you said 10.
You did.
I did.
Okay, that's fine.
So that's Friday, next Friday, the 24th. Okay. Got it? And we'll send you an email tomorrow, once again, just to confirm, so you'll have something in writing from us and you can look at it. But just in case you want to load that up on your calendar or something, at least.
Taco Cabana the same date?
Taco Cabana is still tentative, and they're...
So May 9th is not good.
The grand opening is still on though. The Taco Cabana's May 9th grand opening. They are still having that noon before, and they're giving away bunches of prizes and Taco Cabana for a year.
Yeah.
And a DJ.
Is that the 12th, right?
the 9th.
The 9th, but at 12 o'clock.
Yes, noon to 4.
Okay.
Okay.
Boy, all these people, all these smart, didn't tell us that.
Any other announcements?
You announce something?
Yeah. Joe, and next week is crappie time and noodling time. Is that gonna be all this year ribbon openers cutting into that time?
Okay, then if there's nothing else.
I do want to say something. If you've been down Roman Forest Boulevard, you've seen one of our EMCID projects in the works, which is the Roman Forest Pavilion. And I don't know if you check the Roman Forest City Facebook page, you'll see some of the pictures on there. But it's the majority of that's funded by EMCID, and we plan on doing some kind of, I don't know if ribbon cutting is the right word, but once it's complete, you know, we want to invite EMCID because EMCID's funding the project, and we're going to do some kind of ribbon cutting type thing. So I don't know when that'll be. Do you know a completion date?
Yeah, we talked about that today. It was sometime next week will be good.
Sometime next week will be done. So we'll be wanting to do that pretty soon.
Yeah, next week or two, we'll pick a date and get with Kelly and we'll make it an
I
event.
also wanted to tell y'all that.
Hold on just a minute, let me close that first, okay?
Can I mention one more thing? The binders you have in front of you, the black one, is the finalized State of Texas Transportation Plan. So that binder is there in front of you if you'd like to read it, memorize it. It's testable material, just for you to take with you if anyone would like to take a look at it. The white binder you have is for our workshop for community development grants on the 30th of this month. And you'll see all the applicants' tabs in there in regards to what the requests are. So that's just information for you to take and kind of sort between now and the 30th when we have that workshop.
Okay. All right, the last item on the agenda is to consider matters for possible placement on future agendas.
I wanted to talk about that labor ready thing that we talked about, but we want to do that on another one. I talked to you about it, you said put it on the agenda.
We'll do it probably in June.
Okay, so I don't want to mention that now then.
Not right
Okay.
now. June probably is a good time frame that we can.
Okay.
Okay.
I've got a question for the board. I was going to see what y'all's opinion is about us possibly at the beginning of our monthly meetings getting somebody from our community, giving them an award, somebody that's contributed either economically or to the schools or just, you know, made contributions to our community, give them maybe a certificate like a Shining Star Hometown Hero Award, something great, Community Star Award, and just recognize some people in our community that's helped the kids out or just helped the community out as a
Like
whole.
once a year or every month?
Every meeting.
I like that. Every meeting?
Well, every meeting we could do one that's takes 2 minutes. I mean, basically
We've got people in 2 months.
a board recognition.
Community leader
Yeah.
of some sort.
Yeah.
Should we make that an agenda item?
Yeah, I think let's get set up some parameters, then we would know, are we talking kids, are we talking adults? I mean, let's talk about some parameters, stick it on the next agenda.
We'll make that
Community
agenda.
building.
We'll come up with some guidelines on how to implement that.
Yeah, it's not the presenting an award that takes a lot of time, it's the credentials, who's nominating,
And then
how
who's
you
gonna select?
decide, I mean, it's,
And how often?
that's the process as
So,
well.
you know.
I don't
How often too?
Okay, so we'll make that an agenda item and we'll discuss it at a later meeting. Okay? Is there anything else?
One more announcement, that the fire department, the Splendora, town hall meeting Thursday.
Same night as the East Montgomery County Republican Women's Fundraiser kickoff.
Yeah, but this is the 70th.
So is ours.
So is there.
Y'all just, well,
Yes.
I know where I'm going.
Okay? Okay, if that's it, then we are adjourned and it is 9 o'clock.